Hey guys, how you guys doing? Welcome to Sunday Matinee number I don't know what. So today I grew up listening to this band, and this is the band that kind of made it put Latinos on a pedestal for me, and it was a very humbling thing, and it's kind of what drew me to hardcore. Today I have Hoya from the
Yo,
legendary Madball. How you doing, man?
yo. What's up, everybody?
So where you at, and how you doing?
I'm good right now. I'm at my house. I live in South Florida now. So just been killing time at home during this pan fuckery shit. But
Dude,
we,
how's Florida right now? It's gotta be hot, right?
nah, it's actually nice out. It's like I don't even know what the temperature is, but it's like real comfortable. It's like kind of not hot at all, like actually perfect temperature and shit. You know what I mean? Like it's comfortable,
That's
you know?
that's awesome. I think one of the times that I was on tour and we got to play Miami, and I remember it was like summertime and it was just like super hot. I remember our AC in the van went out, and I remember running out of the van because I saw the water. I was like, hell yeah, it's like 100 degrees out. Run into the water, jump in the water, and it's like a bathtub. I was like, dude,
Yeah. When it's hot here, it's hot. But like right now, it's actually really comfortable. It's really nice, actually.
that's
The
awesome.
winter, like the fall and winter here, are like probably the best. Probably the best weather anywhere. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
comfortable and it ain't really humid outside, so
Well,
we good right now.
that's awesome, man. Well, I'm glad you're doing well, staying busy. But so I kind of want to dive into, for some of the younger generations that don't know, you know, Madball's been a band nearly almost 30 years now, right? If not 30 years.
Yeah, well, I've been in the band for 26 years, about some shit like that since '93.
Hmm.
But yeah, they first dropped the first 7 inch in '88.
Yeah.
So 30, about whatever the math is, I got thrown out of high school. But yeah, from '88. But my stint and from with the band, like making records and being like a serious band since '93. So
Yeah.
long enough, you know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, definitely long enough. But when the band started, you're one of the core members. What and how did the band start when you came to be part of it? Like how did that come to be?
Well, what happened was I had my own band, this band called The Mize, a small hardcore band
Yep.
from New York. And around that time, that band was already finishing up. It's doing it, had its run already. And Freddie had moved up to New York City, and they were doing some Madball stuff. You know what I mean? He came up. I think that's when he was around maybe 16 years old, 15, 16, or some shit like that. And basically, he had moved back up, and we started hanging out. Together. So we were already kind of hanging out together. We actually played, I think, one of probably AF's last show before they had broken up, and it was Demise, my old band, Neglect, which Johnny LaFada ended up being one of our drummers. Madball played the bill, and Agnostic Front. And we had a show in Long Island. We were all boys, because we were hanging out. But basically Roger was about to move to Florida to become a Harley Davidson mechanic.
Oh, nice.
And then what happened was he had left, and then the band, had basically, we're gonna do some weekend type shows and that type of shit. And they knew my band was over, and they asked me, "Hey, you want, Maddie?" I mean, it was Freddie and Maddie, but Maddie, I remember him asking me, "Yo, you want to jump in and fill in for a couple of shows?"
Yeah.
And I was like, he goes, "Yeah, we'll probably do a couple of weekends, nothing more." And I was like, "Yeah, fuck it, why not?" And then that was 26 years later,
Here you are. You are 26 years later.
still filling in.
So I always got to ask because it's like when you listen to these bands and these records, specifically Set It Off, when you listen to these records of bands that influence my bands, influence current day hardcore, you know I can't think beyond that. Like what influence Set It Off? What like I can't pinpoint a specific. Nowadays as a young band, I could be like, oh shit, I want to do a Madball style band. I want
Yeah.
to do a Hatebreed style band. But
Uh,
at that time when you guys wrote that record, what influence Set It Off?
yeah, well, we did the same type of shit, but with a little bit the bands that were before us, like you guys do, the newer bands do. But For us, it was obviously they already had the AF flavor, kind of, because of, all the guys were an agnostic front. But obviously we weren't trying to make a baby agnostic front band, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all of us, and Maddie was really big into, Maddie's, not especially, but all of us were really into the New York scene, like Raw Deal, Killing Time, and bands like that, and obviously the Cro-Mags and AF also. But I grew up with AF also, but I also liked, not that the other guys didn't, but I was into the breakdowns. The Raw Deal was my favorite band. Killing Time was my favorite band, and Leeway. So how AF may have, got inspired by the old style bands. Now it was those guys kind of, I'm getting their influences from the little bit later bands, from the newer, I mean, not newer bands, but the second, third wave of bands that were around, which happened to be everything I was into.
Yeah.
So when I joined the band, I didn't want, I'm playing with guys that I grew up listening to, it was all agnostic front.
Yeah.
So for me, I was just trying to, I said, man, what could I, when we started, I'm thinking of, when they asked me, yo, you got any songs? I was kind of like, I'm hesitant to give them music because I was like, my shit's a little too new style. I'm thinking, I'm like, yo, these older guys don't want to hear that shit. You know what I mean? And I was like, kind of like timid with what I had. But I wrote 2 songs to start with, and Set It Off was one of them. But I didn't present that right away because I said, man, I wrote it to a hip hop song. I said, man, these motherfuckers don't want to hear that. You know what I mean? Like, so I wrote another song, which I basically bit off an agnostic front one voice era because that was closer to what I was into at the time. I love Victim in Pain and all that shit, but I was already into more, groove, a little bit more, crossover. I loved metal. So I love the metal type shit. Yeah. So I wrote It's Time was actually the first song I presented to them. And if you hear it, it's total one voice style. I basically was like, yo, I got this track, see what you like. And then they're like, cool. And then they're like, what else you got? And then I remember telling Maddie, I think we were on the phone. I go, I got this other song, but I don't know, if we don't want to use it, it's all good. I kind of was embarrassed. I didn't even want to play it for them.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, play it for me. And I basically was Set It Off the beginning. He was like, no. Yo, that shit is dope. Let's do it. And then I was like, all right, cool. I felt like, okay, now I can maneuver a little bit. But my influence was trying to do what Killing Time was doing, what Leeway was doing with AF, Cro-Mags, and more of a pocket groove in the music than just being old style Heart Attack fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
so I was like, kind of like, it was just, we were lucky that around that time, a lot of what's considered classic New York now, New York sound, that was the bands we had around playing every weekend. Like I was saying, like Breakdown, Raw Deal, Leeway, the Underdogs, Sick of It All, it was Raw, Rest in Pieces, Sheer Terror, Murphy's Law, those type of bands.
Definitely.
So, it was a good time to make it happen,
Yeah, it's cool to hear that because, like, being someone from LA and California, aesthetically, when when I think of Madball, you guys captured New York in one band.
Yeah.
When I think of New York, I think Madball. And it's even just like the song, the style, the flow, and even just like the artwork. Everything that from your merchandise, everything. I was like, yo, this is very New York. It's fucking cool.
It's cool because, I obviously wanted to rep New York and all that shit, but we never thought about it. And, a compliment that I always took as a real good compliment about us from other people were people said when they heard that record and the early records, they were like, yo, I felt like I never been to New York, but I could tell I felt like I was in New York by the way it sounded. And it wasn't something we thought about. It was just what we were, you know what I mean? And it came out in the music. I guess the same way when we heard Victim in Pain, you felt like you were in the Lower East Side. When you heard the Cro-Mags, you felt like, okay, yo, I could kind of feel like we're in some grimy place.
Yeah.
And, we did I guess it just came out in our pores, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you guys captured that very well, If you were to say, if you had to pick one New York band that growing up with even current bands, what would you say is your favorite New York City band?
Raw Deal, Killing Time, hands down. To me, it's no surprise to the dudes in my band, and again the guys in the band. That's why they're a big influence on Madball. We don't literally sound like them. We covered one of their songs, but the essence was always them because they weren't a metal band, but they had a metallic sound. They were a hardcore band, but they didn't sound like a punk rock band. Yeah. You know what I mean? They had a swag. Anthony, I think, is the best singer. He's like what Phil Pantera is in metal. Like, he could sing hard, but you could hear what he sounded like. They had style, but it wasn't barking. It had flavor to it, but they weren't trying to be a hip hop band. Even though I'm a hip hop, fan, they had swag without trying to have swag. You know what I mean? Definitely. And I think it took that era is more of what we were. You know what I mean? The essence were old style, but that was like kind of the a little bit more modern version of the times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was, I think, when when I think of New York bands, that was Killing Time was the band that started introducing those like metallic riffs into.
Yeah, and it was different because it was not like Leeway, which I loved. Leeway was like a thrash metal, which I loved, and we threw in a lot of thrash influences to Madball, but Killing Time did it in a way where it didn't sound like, they just knew what they made the perfect cake, you know what I mean? Like the perfect ingredients that nobody was doing. It didn't sound fake. It sounded New York. It had style. You know what I mean? Everything about it, man. To this day, that record is a Bible for us. You know what I mean?
That's awesome, man. It's cool to hear that. For me growing up, going to hardcore shows, going to punk shows, and in LA at least, East LA and like the backyard shows, the punk scene was where you found all the Latinos at. Yeah. And hardcore shows was mainly just full of, there's just all Caucasian, it's a huge community. I loved it, but I never felt really welcomed in a certain sense.
Yeah.
And that didn't come about until I saw Madball live. I play in a metal band full of Latinos that like we all grew up watching Madball shows. And it was
shit.
That was the first time I was like, oh shit, there's some brown fools on stage. It's so sick.
Yeah.
And I was like, to me, that was, watching you guys and being like, oh shit, like I can relate to this. I can not only the music, but there's someone in the band that I can relate to and on a cultural level. And it was really cool to see that, and you guys, when you guys come out and play, you guys play 100%, like, dude, you just see LA go wild,
Yeah.
It's just like, you see every Latino kid just going buck. Do you ever think of the influence you guys had on the Latino community and hardcore?
We never really thought about it. I mean, throughout the years, a lot of people told us similar things to what you said, you know what I mean? And for us, I felt the same way you did to a point. Being in New York was a little bit more integrated than Cali was back in the day. Like, again, you had the Latinos and more in the punk rock backyard scene, and then the other scene was the white kids. In New York, it was similar, but in New York, you're kind of on top of each other. So there was a mix. But I felt that early on, kind of, the thing was that I got into the music through my older brother. So right away, I learned Roger was Cuban. Yeah. And I was like, right away, I'm like, yo, these are the fucking, these are the kings. And I'm like, yo, and that motherfucker's Cuban. Yo, this could be my house also. So how guys, I guess, like you looked at us, we looked at AF because of Roger. And I'm like, yo, he's from Cuba. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I felt like, and then, you meet, and then you would find out a little bit of the history. They had, a guy, Diego, back in the day. Oh, there wasn't a lot of Latin kids, but there was some Latin kids spread around. Mm-hmm. And then I felt like, sure, you feel like you knew you weren't the majority. Yeah. But there was always a couple of big dogs that were already representing. So, we felt comfortable, like having a Roger, having, certain other Latin dudes that were old school guys around and shit. You know what I mean? So it kind of was like, not thought about, but I know the feeling. You know what I mean? Like I say all the time, I go, when people try to tell me about stuff, I'm like, yo, look at my band plays. It's mainly white kids. You know, not everybody into hardcore music is Latin or black or Asian. There's more now than ever. But I say, yo, you know, it's like rock and roll was a lot of white kids. Yeah, it came from black music, but a lot of white kids. But when you look at rock and roll and you start looking at last names, you find out there's a lot of Latin dudes sprinkled in there too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just got to look hard enough.
Yeah.
And Roger was a big part of that for sure for us. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see that, you know, because like, you know, nowadays you go to shows in LA, and I was actually having an interview with, you know, some close friends of mine and talking about how shows here in LA is just, you know, you go to one of our shows and it's just straight up all Latinos. And it's cool that, you know, you have such a multicultural space in hardcore now, whether it's here in New York or anywhere in the country, it's grown to be fully embraced by all cultures. You know, everybody's accepted now, and it's very obvious in places like New York, places like LA, and you know, it's cool that, you know, what you guys have done. And we're here. When I was younger, when I saw you guys, you know, you see all the other Latino kids come out, and that's when I was like, oh shit, where are you from? Where are you from? And connecting with all the people within your, you know, your community. So,
yeah, it's a good feeling.
Yeah, man. I've always wanted to see Madball in like South America, because I always watch videos of that. It looks wild.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's probably one of the things also, like, again, growing up, there was always, even with my whole crew of dudes, there was always Latin kids, but we were always mixed. It wasn't even all white kids. You know, there was Indian kids, there was Thai kids, there was Chinese kids. So we were always a mixed batch, even though we know classic punk hardcore was like mainly white kids. You know what I mean? But I got lucky that early on, my first trip with Madball outside America anywhere was to Buenos Aires, Argentina in '93.
Beautiful.
And when I got there, I couldn't believe it, that all these, you know, having 500-600 kids, hardcore kids going crazy, all speaking Spanish. You know, I was like, this is fucking crazy. I didn't think anybody would fucking know who the fuck we were. And I think that kind of let us know, like, yo, the Latins are into this shit. I always knew they were into metal, but I didn't know how big and how much roots punk rock and hardcore had in South America, which Brazil, Argentina had it for many, many years.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
And I think that kind of, and again, Roger was always proud of his heritage. That kind of made us, even with me and Freddie being young and more gung-ho, saying, yo, let's take that shit to another level. Let's start fucking rep it. You know, we didn't think about it. We just repped it harder. We said, yo, let's do a song in Spanish, you know, and then do the song in Spanish, and then do, you know, just bring in our flavor to the music, you know, just being who we were. You know, this is, you know, we were always like that kind of, you know, very family oriented. We always proud of our families and where we came from. So it was going to come out in the music anyway. So, but I'm glad when I would meet people like that, like Latin kids that tell me shit like that, because I know the feeling. Yeah. And I'm like, nah, this is our house too. You know, this is everybody's house. You know what I mean?
That's awesome, man. It's cool to see Madball's influence, and it's definitely it's been a positive influence, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad.
So diving into, you know, a whole different subject now. Obviously, you know, we're doing Q&As and a lot of Zoom and a lot of live stream shit because of the world's fucked up.
Yeah,
to say the least. But you know, this pandemic hit, and it's literally put our worlds to fucking stop. You know, music, people in bands, people in the music industry, people that work at venues, you know, even bars, you know, the crews, everybody that's the music industry is at a stop, and it doesn't seem to have a future at this time being.
Yeah.
That being said, how are you dealing with this pandemic? And I ask that in a sense of, you know, are you staying productive? Is there ever moments where you kind of get depressed, or is there moments where are you staying productive to kind of keep out of that funk, you know? And
yeah,
it's different for everybody. For me, sometimes I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm depressed, you know? But how are you dealing with all this, you know? Because your world.
No, for sure, that shit. At first, it was all right because it was kind of a world thing. I felt like it ain't just us; the whole world is shutting down. So I was like, I didn't, I had to worry about myself, but I said that's every band, that's every this, that's every that. But then as the weeks went on, shit started getting even more real with me. Like, this is what we've been doing our whole lives. We don't got a backup plan. You know what I mean? We don't know anything else. Music is everything to us. Um, you know, that shit started kicking in and being, I got early. I was a dude to have anxiety and shit like that. Started getting anxiety thinking about my life because one, I'm a single father and I play in a hardcore band. Those are already two tough things to do. You know what I mean? Like
man.
financially and mentally. And then with everything else going on, just being not knowing what's going on in the outside world. I still don't know when we're going to be able to go out and play. And shit got scary. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, what the fuck do we do to, hardcore doesn't get a royalty check. I don't see a royalty check. We don't see that. We make all our money from touring, from playing live and doing that, and like I was telling my boy on his podcast, you get two options. It gets to a point you could do two things. You could lay over and die, or you could get up and try to make something pop. You know what I mean? And I'm always been a creative dude, and my brain was letting me get the worst of me at first, and then I would think of my son, and I'm like, yo, one thing especially which hardcore taught me was, you don't give up. You know what I mean? We're already one of the smallest scenes, but we're one of the most jock scenes in the world. Yeah. So we're like, there's a reason for that. You know what I mean? Because there's some real shit behind it, and some real you can't kill us type shit.
Yeah.
And I said, one thing I want my son to know is no matter what, that his pop went out swinging. And then I started telling myself, yo, you got to get up off your ass and don't dwell on what might not happen, but what you could do now kind of shit. So I got back on, my podcast, The Smoking Word. I had it many years ago, but because technology and shit was too crazy back then, it was hard for me to keep up. And then the Zoom shit came into play because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I saw, wait a minute, man, this is easier technology I could work with. Fuck it. Let me, how do we keep the brand alive? How do we spread the word? How do we keep our scene alive or in touch with each other? I said, fuck it. I'm starting the podcast again. Let me gather up new music because we're working on our 10th Madball album. I said, what can we do? Think of merch ideas to sell merch, and it just lit a fire in my ass to get creative with everything else around, and it helps keep the movement alive, not just me, but everybody. You doing this podcast, people selling merch, people doing the collabs, people doing the live streams, this shit keeps something alive. People forget also, this music came out of a fucking little hole in the wall in the Lower East Side in the early 80s when they had 30 people in the whole scene, when nobody wanted them. Nobody gave a fuck. Nobody gave them play. Well, guess what? That's kind of how it is right now. And if they did it and made it happen was because they didn't give a fuck what everybody else around them said. They just did what they did and worked with what they have. That's what we got to do now is, I don't know when this shit's going to end, but work with what we got, and we got to still feed it. You know what I mean? We still got to feed our scene and make it grow. And if we can't do it with music now, is by letting people know, we're still out here. We're still doing music, do these podcasts, do the collabs, still start bands. You know what I mean? If you're starting a band just to be a rock star, you shouldn't be in the scene anyway. So fuck you. You know what I mean? But if you love the music, you could write the music that you want to do in the rehearsal studio when you can get in a rehearsal studio. And that's just investing in the future. You know what I mean? Just trying to stay busy with everything, man, doing that and trying to stay, positive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
It's crazy. We don't know what's going on, but it's easy to be negative. You know what I mean? It's easy.
Exactly. And I think that's, that's one of the biggest things that I've always taken out of hardcore is the kind of DIY aesthetics of, doing everything ourselves, and it's very obvious that, you're doing a podcast, staying busy, staying productive. And that's kind of like, that's always been the mentality within our culture. And but and another question I ask, is like, from when you started touring and even to when I started touring, it was you physically had to go to these cities and play shows to sell a record, to get known. How do you feel about current days where, people put out music and some of these young bands are just straight up playing festivals and that's it?
Yeah,
Do
I'm definitely never wanted to be one of those bitter older guys that like, yo, fuck these. I love the new school because you can learn from the new school way of maneuvering. We can't go against the times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what I think a lot of these newer bands got to do is just look at the history. You don't got to do it like the old guys did because you got different platforms.
Yeah.
But you got to look at the history, and I think if you look at the history, you're gonna shape yourself into something even better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? With the right soul.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because now a kid could come out with a band and he blows up right away because he got mad SoundCloud hits. I don't hate on that, but a lot of those guys will call themselves a hardcore band and not know who a Murphy's Law is, who Agnostic Front is, who is anybody. And I think you don't gotta like those bands, but you should know your history because we're lucky that we're part of a scene that, like, our Black Sabbath, our Led Zeppelins are playing right now. That means Agnostic Fronts and the Chrome.
Yeah.
That's our, hero, our DNA. They're still alive doing it and killing it.
Yeah.
So we're lucky to have that. You know how many people wish they could say, I wish I could see Sabbath now. I wish I could have seen Led Zeppelin. I wish I could have seen the Beatles. Well, guess what? Like a rapper that had Noriega, he has a podcast and he always says something that makes the best. He goes, yo, I want to give my heroes the flowers while they could still smell them. You know what I mean? Celebrate them. Not when they're dead and over with. You want to big them up. You want to big them up when they could still appreciate the love. We got those guys still doing it.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? They're in the mix, and we've got to learn how to appreciate that our history is mad rich, is not old, ancient old, and we still got our godfathers doing it. They're in the trenches with us. Yeah. That's rare to have your general in the trenches with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people realize that. I think they might appreciate what they're part of a little bit more,
Yeah, I mean, me as a younger dude, watching the bands that I grew up on that are still playing shows, are still actively playing the band, it's fucking incredible. It's like, yo, you took a lifestyle and fucking rolled with it and kept going,
Yeah.
And,
but look at Stigma. Stigma's 60, whatever years old. I look at him and I used to think, oh, yo, how old could you do this to? Well, I know Stigma's setting the bar. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, he's doing it and killing it. And he runs around more than half the kids run around.
It's funny you say that. Because every time I see him, I'm like, I was like, how does this dude have so much energy? Like, I'm 30 years younger than this guy. And
because he loves it. He lives this shit. It ain't fake. He did that his whole life. When he was in the pit, when he was on stage, if he was supporting his friends, he was always a part of it. All those guys, right? Those guys they're the heartbeat of this shit. Yeah. And look at the heartbeat and follow the leader. That's it. You know what I mean? Yeah. You do. I love when people are like, I grew out of it. How you grow out of something it's not just a music, it's a lifestyle. How you grow out of, sure, I don't go to every show. Yeah, I'm not a skin no more, but I am inside. I'm still all that shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm still that dude. I still see a band. I still get amped when I hear a kid, my neighbor. I used to have a neighbor play drums. I hear him blasted playing drums in his garage while the neighbors are getting mad. He's making noise. I fucking loved it. Because I'm like, hell yeah, that kid could be doing some other bullshit. He's playing something. He's playing. He's getting his shit out. He's creating. And I think of myself when I was a kid, and I get amped. I love seeing the young kids skating. I love them seeing, jumping off cars, getting chased out of parking lots. People talking shit about how you look and you not giving a fuck. To me, that's the real shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's cool to hear you say that, man, because that's the one. If there's anything I ever tell, the kids younger than me that are, in a band playing shows and, coming up in this world is that, one of the biggest things that hardcore's ever given to me is not only my career, but it's like I was forced to learn a lot of shit because of this. Because we hit the road, I learned how to fucking do some business. I learned how to,
Yeah.
drive. I learned how to,
Hell yeah.
do audio, do lighting. You learn a lot of things from this and that. And on top of learning, it was one of the funnest things I've ever done in my life. You got in a van with a bunch of your friends, and I should probably be in jail, but I'm not, thankfully.
Yeah.
but if there's ever anything I'd ever say to the young bands, is do that, is just get on the road and learn. And thanks to bands like Madball, that you guys were the bands are like, oh fuck, they're touring. Okay, I can tour.
Yeah.
Do that shit.
And that's what we did with the AFs and the older guys like that. And we were always like, people forget, like, because it's part of this whole movement that the shit is ran by the kids. It was made by the kids. You know what I mean? When big rock clubs weren't letting them play, the kids say, yo, let me find my own spot. And you learn how to grow up quick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And doing a zine, writing, making a flyer. You're doing something creative to spread the word, making doing a spoken word, doing bands, putting out your own record. Yo, that's like grown-ups. A lot of grown-ups couldn't do that shit right now.
Yeah.
If you told them so, because they don't got that drive. When you want to do something, you find a way to do it.
Yeah,
and
figure this out.
Yeah, and that's the beauty about this shit. You got two types of kid. When I was a hardcore skin, and my school was all black and Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And this is in the times when people thought skinheads were white power shit.
Yeah.
So you could have done two things when people used to tell me, yo, how can you listen to that white boy shit? That's what they used to tell me. And I used to be like, you just don't know what's up. You could do two things. You could either go with what everybody's doing and then say, fuck it, maybe let me get into something else. Or, like I think about it, to me, hardcore was like having a superpower. You just don't, like an X-Men, you just don't know. I'm on something that, you don't deserve to know with that mentality. You don't deserve it, because, it takes a certain type of person to care, to not give a fuck about how you look and rep what you rep. You know what I mean? And then that makes you a stronger person. That's why people that come from the scene now are some of the best businessmen. They're lawyers. They're fucking running companies, because they got that mentality of like, I don't give a fuck what you think about me or how I look. I know what time it is.
Yeah, that's very true, man.
And that'll get you far in life. Just drive. It gives you a drive. You can either drive the car, or you can sit in the back seat. I'd rather drive the car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I completely agree, man. Well, dude, it's so cool to, if I have a conversation with you, because I've obviously seen you guys so many times. I think we've actually played some shows together, but it's cool to find, come in contact. But, as far as Madball goes in the foreseeable future, is there anything coming up in your guys' world as far as maybe some music? What's going on in your guys' world?
Yeah, COVID, the police, critics, none of that shit is ever gonna stop us, till we die or till we decide that's enough, which ain't coming anytime soon. We're working on our 10th album, which is crazy. I still bug out saying that. I never thought I would do 2, 3, let alone working on our 10th. And we were actually ready to not get in the studio yet, but we were planning to we were looking at the end of the year. So we were planning to get together with the band and start building some songs, because I got a lot of music stacked up, but all this shit came down. So right now we're just waiting when shit kind of calms down a little bit and start getting in the rehearsal studio. And we're definitely dropping an album next year. We're doing our 10th one for 2021. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
And then, hopefully we could play, whenever the forces, lets us play again. That's when we're going to make it happen. So we'll obviously be able to record before play, I think.
Yeah.
But, the plan is to fucking make a statement with our 10th album, let motherfuckers know that, it ain't just, it's another Madball album. That's what we did on our last album. We wanted to make it, if you liked it or not, we wanted to make a statement that, it's not just another Madball album. Like, nah, they're bringing something to the table. Yo, they play. Yo, there's an angle. Yo, the shit is still dope. Yo, the production is dope. The artwork is cool. In every way, we want to raise the bar for the older bands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That it ain't just a young man sport anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was definitely cool to hear you guys mix. You know, for at a certain point, like I could only imagine being in a band for so long, is that, you know, you kind of try to step out of the redundancy of playing the same type of tunes, but you guys didn't do that. You guys like, yo, like we're gonna take the stuff that influenced us.
Yeah.
You know, write these different types of songs, and it was
and that's even on the last album where we had like a little bit, couple more melodic tracks. I was writing a lot of music, and I have stuff that I was putting aside that wasn't Madball stuff.
Yeah.
Freddie would always step up his vocal styles. And when he would hear some of the tracks, which I never thought would be on a Madball record, he was like, yo, what's that you got? And I'm like, yo, I got this. I wasn't sure if we could use it. But I think it's dope, but I don't know if it's Mad. He was like, nah, fuck that. I want to use that. That's and, awesome. You know, we're dudes that we do whatever the fuck we want. No record label, no management. Nobody ever told us what the fuck to do, and never will. Yeah. So we say, yo, we're going to do this. You know what I mean? You know, everybody, you know, people probably, you know, some people expected like some beat down record, which I love that heavy mosh shit, but that wasn't in the cards for that album. We wanted to show that hardcore bands could write a good song, not just a song with a good mosh part. You know what I mean? You know, and also show, yo, we could play our instruments, and we could take our influences that are not just hate breed, which I love, or not just this. You know, we want to, yo, you know, I was listening to a lot of rock shit, a lot of classic rock. And I'm like, yo, I hear the where punk got their idea from that, and I'm going to do my interpretation of that. And it was kind of just like some groove shit, which it's funny. Some people were like, yeah, I hear, you know, we did the record with Tim Armstrong. And some people are like, yeah, I could hear the influences he had on those songs. And I'm like, we had those songs before we knew he was doing the record. You know what I mean? It was just coincidentally, it was in that realm, because we weren't getting influence from our typical, the thrash and the, you know, the raw deals, which they're always in the mix, but we also tapped into another angle of our roots. You know what I mean? And it wasn't, we didn't think about it. It just came out that way. You know what I mean? Which I'm glad, you know, it kind of gave, you know, again, we never want to write the same album over and over, you know?
And you guys did it. And I think it came out great, man. I was like, it's really cool to see. It's really cool to see, you know, your peers do records and step outside of those boundaries that you know, people kind of like, oh, you know, you have to be this type of band or do this type of style.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see that, you know?
You know, when we did, back in the day, you know, there's some people on the last album like, oh, yo, we want to hear more the old style shit. But it's funny, when we did Look My Way, which was a more metallic album, we got criticized big time for that album, because everybody back then was like, yo, what's up with that metal shit? And we're like, I don't give it, because everybody was doing the punk shit back then, the hey hoes kind of shit at that time. And when they were doing that, we were like, fuck that, we're going to get darker. And we would do the more metallic shit and more heavy and more thrashy type shit. And that record didn't get its love till years later. When it came out, people talk shit on us saying, yo, what's up? You trying to be a metal band? And, you know, which we always loved metal, but at the time it wasn't cool like it is now. You know what I mean?
But, dude, it's crazy, because when you listen to those records, I was like, dude, going back to those records, like, you know, going to Hold It Down, even like Legacy, I was like, dude, those are fucking hard records.
Yeah, and I love those records too. They all got a flavor. They all were a little bit more. They were different than from each other. You could hear the progression in our playing. Yeah. And but it was always we never did what anybody was doing. Yeah. Period. You know, we just always said we make our own lane, no matter what it is. You know what I mean? And we get influenced by everybody. Yeah. You know what I mean? I love the newer bands. You know, I love the older bands. I love the fucking metal bands. I love, you know, I love it all. You know, so who the fuck could tell me which ingredients I could use? You know, especially when we've been repping this shit 26 years. We've been repping this shit more consistent than some of these classic old school bands, you know, that only had 2 records out and never played more than 2 years. So I feel like I could at least say that I don't give a fuck what anybody says from what era. We do what the fuck we want, how we want it, when we want it. You know?
I definitely agree. You know, it's one of those things where, like, to me, as now that I'm older, is like, you know, nothing against these bands that reunite and do the fucking thing, but it's like, you know, there's bands that have been consistently doing this for a while. You know, you guys
Yeah.
being one of them. You know, one of my other favorite bands, Terror, too. It's like
Yeah, of course.
bands
Love
that
them.
just like consistently playing bands, and it's like I don't know how you guys do it in the sense of like, dude, it takes a toll on your life, you know, touring and constantly being on the road and playing music. That's
Oh
a
yeah.
whole other ball game, you know. But
Oh yeah. It,
but I admire it, you know.
yeah, it ain't easy, man. You know, especially in our world, it ain't like we're in tour buses all the time. You know, we got royalty checks, a big, record advance, none of that bullshit.
Yeah, yeah,
Us is from being out there. We're like, it's a family business. You know, we're like the Partridge Family. We're a family that we survive from playing. We
yeah,
live together. That's how we make our money. That's how we go out and we got to do, survive. But it's the only way we knew. You know, it was this way or illegally,
yeah,
making money. And we family guys now, and I ain't trying to go to jail.
yeah,
And and I love creating, and even more, I love that we never wanted to be like, we want to be known as the classic old band. I'm fucking happy with people just lumping us in with the AFs and the Sick of It Alls and the whatever. I'm like, I used to pay to go see these. Well, not pay. I used to sneak in, but I used to. These are the guys I would go, out of my way to go see and then go to school the next day. And
yeah.
now you mention us in the same breath. To me, I'm like, I feel like we did our job, and and I'm proud of that.
Definitely. I mean, I think Madball definitely has a legacy, and no one can ever take that away. You know, and it's you guys over a span of time have had your influence, and definitely made a mark on this culture
Yeah,
and this world. You
I'm
know.
glad, man, and I'm glad because that's all I ever wanted to do. I just said this for my personal goal was when motherfuckers talk about the roots of this shit to include us because
Yeah,
we live this shit, we rep this shit, and we haven't stopped.
yeah,
And we don't want to be known just for that, but we want to be known as, one of the wheels on this car. You know what I mean? We don't need to say we were driving it, well, we built it. We want to just be known as one of the things that kept this shit alive because we live this shit. I don't even want to say love it because it's a part of us. It's
yeah,
just what we are. You know what I mean? We
yeah.
don't know nothing.
Definitely is. Well, I got a couple more questions for you, man, and then I'll let you go. So, but thank you. Um, so I'm not a big fan of politics because that shit drives me
Yeah.
crazy. And also, I think it drives a lot of people apart. But I have to ask, did you watch that debate?
Oh yeah, I did. Of course. I never thought in my life I would look forward to something and it was everything I thought it would be. You know what I mean? I don't pick a side because to me, I'm in the middle with everybody.
Yeah,
And to me, like, I'm a hardcore kid. So to me, I know the bigger picture with, a TV bad guy, a TV good guy.
yeah.
There's somebody running the television network.
But like,
You know what I mean?
yeah, but
So,
like watching that, I felt like I was watching a plane crash. You know?
oh yeah, it was cringy in some ways and crazy, but I'm not surprised in
Yeah.
a way. I mean, it's like it's
Like,
crazy time.
what was your reaction as just to watching that debate?
It was just crazy. For once, I could say for a guy who I don't really follow a lot of politics, I could keep up with it because that shit was a raw argument of just people, one trying to bully the other and another one, trying to be the good guy.
Yeah,
And and to me, it's all fake, all of them. You know
yeah,
what I mean? My opinion about everything is all, this guy's a Nazi. This guy is not a Nazi. I know real Nazis. I chased them out of the scene. Not
yeah,
me personally, but we chase motherfuckers out of the scene. Not that guys aren't this or that, or my whole thing is I got my own opinion on everything, and
mhm,
neither one of those guys think the way I do.
yeah,
So you know what I mean? It's just it's a crazy time, but look at we're living, cleaning our hands, walking around with masks. Nothing is fucking surprising anymore.
yeah,
It's a little bit sad, but I think people said this during the Vietnam War, during the old days. There was probably kids feeling like us, like, yo, what the fuck is going on? There's a lot of fuckery going on.
Yeah.
So, I just worry about my house, my close reality,
Yeah.
making sure I'm doing my part for my kids to be raised right with my morals, not with the morals on motherfuckers on TV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No matter what they are, what side, I don't give a fuck. I'm trying to make sure my sons grow up learning to sit back and listen.
Mm-hmm.
Don't pick a side. Sit back and listen, then make your go back, assess, and then make your opinion on what's what. And then you're gonna find out it still doesn't lean to a side. You could go like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean I definitely agree because it seems like every time I watch the news or watch something that's happening on TV, it's nothing surprises me now because it just seems to get crazier and crazier and crazier, and it seems like these whether Republican or Democratic, these emotions or feelings are driving the crazy out of people rather than sitting back and actually thinking straight. People are just acting out foolish. And it's
and also part of it is we see it more now because there's social media, so everybody has a voice. Back in the day, you couldn't tell what people were thinking, and people couldn't hide from what they were thinking of. That's why the guys who protested back in the day, I give them big credit because they had everything to lose.
Yeah.
Because they had to show their face. They had to physically go out. And if they stated their opinion, they had to face the fire. Whatever side. Now, you could do it with a meme, with this, and never show your face in a fake account. And not, you can't be accounted for. They don't take balls. I don't take balls. Imagine, you know what I mean? Imagine being, a black kid going through the South protesting in the old days. That took balls. Imagine being a KKK guy trying to go through a fucking black neighborhood with your hood on. Like it or not, that took balls. But that you were accountable for it. Yeah. Nowadays, people hide behind a screen, which kind of makes shit watered down and also takes the sting out of some of this shit. You know what I mean? It's like what I tell people is take it for face value, make your own opinions, listen, research, and make your own opinions on what's what. Don't let some channels have commercials leaning towards one side, and then that brainwashes you. Yeah. Turn the TV off. Yeah. Find out what you think. In life, it's important to you, and then connect the dots to what side you want to go, and you're going to see it's going to go all over the place. This side, that side. You know what I mean? And lean to one side, and you shouldn't have to pick. Because you could, if you pick from everybody, you would have the ultimate person because you'll have a lot of flavor, a lot of ideas, growth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the same thing with like music, Thank God there was the AF, the Cro-Mags, the Leeways, the Murphys Law, all different flavors that made a Madball. A Madball made, the next band. The next band made the next band, feeding off each other. You need a balanced diet, right? You need oats, you need vegetables, you need same type of shit. You don't just do one or the other.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that it seems like our world, America's not finding the balance. They're fine.
Yeah, no. Well, it's in a fucked up place now, but it's also something that got to happen. Every country has their revolutions one way or another. People also forget America's a very new country, but we're a superpower. You know what I mean? We also done a lot in a small amount of time. And we're like, we're learning. We're going through growing pains.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I traveled all over the world and I love a lot of other countries, but I think America is the best place to live in the world. But we have also a lot of problems. But guess what? You go to Germany, they have their problems. You go to, Canada, they have their problems. You go to South America, they got their problems.
Yeah.
And except ours is on the biggest platform because America is a big influence on the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it should also wake people up to the bigger picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
they just one guy ain't just pressing a button. That's bullshit. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I just, for our sake, I hope the world comes correct, so
Oh,
you and I could get back to work.
oh, ASAP, believe me, because I'm gonna start robbing banks. And it's gonna be easy because people wear a mask now, so they ain't gonna know.
Dude. Yeah, I'm like, all right, December comes up, I'm fucking, something's gotta happen.
I know, yeah. The fact is, after these elections, we're gonna see what's what, because the elections and politics have some. It's not everything to do with it, but it has something to do with shit,
Yeah,
with how things are gonna move. Because it's a world affair. Right now, I talked to my boy in Germany. Right now, Germany is shutting down again.
yeah,
They're gonna start shutting down because they think so. Everybody just wants to think that Europe got it perfect. No, they don't. You know what I mean? It's a world problem going on now.
well, yeah. Hopefully the world comes correct, man, and hopefully we can cross paths and play some shows. And
Yeah.
but
Sure.
before I let you go, any shout outs to the world?
Yeah, I want to shout out. Let me see. I don't want to shout out Kevin Norton. I don't want to shout who else. I don't want to shout out Maddie Henderson. No, I want to shout everybody. I want to shout out everybody in our world who's keeping this shit alive. To you, to everybody who has a podcast, everybody who's putting out merch, everybody who's still, every kid who's starting a band, who wants to start a band, they should still do it
Yeah,
because you still write your music. Everybody in our world, I want to shout out to keep doing what they're doing and don't stop because the people in the big office are telling us to stop. Don't listen to nobody. Just keep doing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And everybody that tune into everybody's podcast. Metallica is cool and all that, but they got enough money. Support local bands. Support smaller bands. Support family businesses. Buy their merch. If you're lucky to have a job, buy a T-shirt.
Yep.
Subscribe to a YouTube channel. Subscribe to a podcast.
Yep.
I'm reach out because that's how we keep the shit alive and we keep it going forward.
Definitely. Well, Hoya, it was great talking to you today, man. Thank you for your time, and I can't wait to see Madball again, man.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. We'll talk soon, and hopefully we'll play some shit when the shit's over.
All right. All right.
Be safe, bro. Peace.